talk to me if you would. I caught a little bit of your speech last night. Everybody's in the campaign or at the RNC has basically talked about, I heard a lot about nobody's going to be safe in Joe Biden's America and things like that. Obviously, the Biden campaign, we haven't heard them talk much about what's been going on right now with some of the violence in some of the cities. I'm sure they would disagree with that. But that seemed to be a big theme last evening.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the fact that they didn't even acknowledge it in the 4 days of their convention, not once did you hear about what has been happening in some of our great American cities. And I don't think it's lost on anyone that these cities are run by Democrats. And sadly, it seems like they're playing politics instead of looking out for the lives of their citizens, small businesses in their communities. They would rather talk about defunding the police than taking care of the people in their communities. They took an oath to do that, and they are not being effective at all. And sadly, I think it's going to run a lot of people out of some of our great cities in this country. The president, on the other hand, has offered his help. He's offered federal support to come in and help quell the violence and get things back to normal. Nobody wants to live in an unsafe community, but sadly, we have seen the violence get out of hand many, many times, and it really hasn't stopped. So I think the whole point is we have a president right now that is standing up and saying, hey, I'm here to help. All you have to do is ask me, because the federal government can't just come in to a community across the country without being asked by local authorities to come in. Unfortunately, if Joe Biden became president, I don't think he would offer that support. In fact, he has talked about reallocating funds away from police departments. Some people interpret that as defunding the police. So I think whenever you see how he's being pushed very far left, I mean, this ticket with the Biden-Harris ticket is the most far left radical socialist ticket in the history of American politics. We know that those are the individuals in the mayors of these cities that are not quelling the violence, are not protecting citizens. I think that's the whole point. I think people need to feel safe. If you don't have safety and security, what do you have?
So talk to me if you would, everybody, this is anticipated it's going to be a close race. The polling, I know, shows Joe Biden nationally leading pretty significantly, even in some battleground polls. I know the gap has closed maybe a little bit on that from what I've been reading. But there's a lot of people in this country that aren't happy right now with the way things are going, and that doesn't bode well for President Trump. So what is your response to that?
Well, first of all, as it relates to polling, I have never believed the polls. In 2016, obviously the day before the election, all the polling showed that Hillary Clinton would be the next president of the United States, and we know it was Donald Trump. I think the polls are actually more inaccurate now than they even were in 2016. I think people are made to feel ashamed to support the sitting president of the United States, which I think is absolutely disgusting and insane. But sadly, that is where we are in our sort of cancel culture, overrun with media coverage, and 98% of it negative for this president, kind of world in which we live. So I think, look, we obviously are facing a very tough time in our country. We have never had to deal with a worldwide pandemic in modern history like what we're doing right now. But I think as we're coming out of that, as we are moving out of coronavirus, people are getting back to normal life. People want to know ultimately that they have a job at the end of this, that they are going to be able to take care of their families on the other end of this. We know that President Trump is the man who gave us the best economy in the history of our country not too many months ago, before the artificial interruption of the coronavirus. So I think those are things that people keep in the back of their minds when they go in a voting booth. They want to know that they have someone who ultimately is going to protect them, who is going to make sure that they can, take care of their families economically, that they have a job. And unfortunately, Joe Biden's proposals and the policies that he's running on would not do that. When you're talking about things like the Green New Deal, overnight energy jobs are gone all across this country. Right now, we're energy independent. And we saw how important it is to be independent as a country right now during the coronavirus. That is something that is very, very impactful. We're no longer reliant on the Middle East and Russia for our energy. We can do it here at home. I think people remember that. This is a man that wants open borders, less funding for police. If we open our borders, I mean, people are going to go without jobs all across this country because you're going to have illegal immigrants coming in, taking those jobs, taking lower salaries for them. It is not the way to get the economy back up and running. And I think people are ultimately going to remember that. So again, I never put a whole lot of weight into the polling. I'll tell you, our fundraising at the campaign is always a better reflection as to the sentiment out there. We have been doing incredible numbers with our fundraising. And I'll tell you, everywhere I travel all across this country, the number of people who come up to me and say, you know what, I didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2016 because I bought into the narrative about him, but I've seen what he's been able to do. There are a lot of those people out there, and I think they're going to turn out for him on November 3rd.
So what can we expect tonight? Obviously, the president will speak tonight to accept the nomination. What are we expecting?
Well, I think it's going to put a big exclamation point on a week that we already, I think, have tried our best to be inspirational, hopeful, patriotic, remind people that this is the most exceptional nation in the world. We should be proud to be Americans. You'll hear more of that from this president. He's going to talk about the fact that we are facing a hard time, but we've come through so many hard times as a country before, and we get through it together. We unify and we become one American family. That's what we want to see happen. He also, I think, is going to talk about the next 4 years of the Trump agenda. He wants to see 10 million new jobs created in 10 months. He wants 1 million more small businesses in this country, more tax breaks for people, expansion of opportunity zones, more deregulation so that we can get this economy back up and running. So you're going to hear more from him on his second term agenda and exactly what his plans are for this country. But overall, I think that it will just put a cap on a week that we hope people leave inspired and uplifted and feeling great about America and great about being an American. At the end of the day, we all share that, and it's something we should be proud of.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much, Laura.